Alright guys, don't know how this is going to work out. We'll try it real quick, just as a sample. So I'm in Las Vegas. Been here since last Sunday. Today is Sunday the 15th, and I'm up here for some accelerated flight training. I earned my commercial pilot's license, single engine, in back in 2000, so 20 years ago, and I don't talk a whole lot about it, but I was kind of on a path to become a professional pilot at that time. Really didn't, as it, kind of through turn of events, basically 9/11, that torpedoed that plan. I had a good job offer to stay in engineering at that point, and to turn that into a 25-year career, which ended, at the end of September of this year. Partly due to the COOF, partly due to just general market conditions. Company I worked for has basically dissolved itself. We moved our basic engineers down into the parent company, but specialist stuff like I do, they weren't going to maintain that. And since then, I mean, all the major programs they were banking on have all been canceled or delayed, so it's not a great situation. So here I was, 50 years old and out of a job, first time in a long time. And but I was fortunate that because of the position I had in the company, I was eligible for a severance package. That plus savings plus unused vacation gave us a bit of a cushion, so I was able to think a little bit about what I wanted to do. And as I was evaluating my options, I was made aware of an opportunity to maybe join a aircraft management company that currently maintains and operates a turboprop PC-12, a turboprop twin Cheyenne, and a series of turboprop twin King Airs. And so there was this opportunity to join them as a co-pilot, but I had to have my multi-engine rating to do it. Not for the Pilatus, but for the Cheyennes, for the Cheyenne or the King Airs, I have to be a multi-engine pilot. So I started looking at my options to pick up my multi-engine rating. I found an accelerated course up here in North Las Vegas, and basically planned to come up, take the week to do the training and get the check ride done. A little bit about kind of myself. I kind of overemphasize the difficulty of going through check rides. I've had great check rides. I don't have anything to complain about. I don't even have a bad experience to point to. All the examiners I've flown with have been great, but because it is a black and white pass-fail evaluation, and in this case it was related to having a potential job opportunity tied to it, it's been very stressful for me. About 2 weeks ago, I had an opportunity to fly to Mexico in the Cheyenne as an observer, basically to just kind of see how one of those days goes. And I don't think I've posted the video up yet, but I will. And basically, it was a 90-minute drive down to the airfield, which is about 90 minutes away from the house. We pre-flight the airplane. We fly from Imperial down to Mexicali in Mexico. We go through Mexican customs. We pick up our passenger. We fly them to their location. We wait a couple of hours while they do their task, and then we flew back to Mexicali, dropped the passenger off. From Mexicali, we went to Calexico in California for U.S. Customs, and then from there back to Imperial. And so all in all, it ended up being a 12, 14-hour day with a couple of hours in the airplane, basically. And it was a great experience, good exposure to me to learn the ins and outs of kind of what a normal day would look like. So that kind of solidified it for me that I really wanted to make this work. I had already committed to this training at that point. I just needed to get it done. And so I drove up here to Las Vegas a week ago on Sunday. On Monday, we did ground school. On Tuesday, partly a result of stress, potentially a result of the maybe some food, ice, or other anything I experienced in Mexico. I was sick as a dog on Tuesday, and so I canceled any flying on Tuesday, which pushed us to basically Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to do the instruction flights, which we completed. And then the examiner, sometimes they can make the weekends work. They weren't able to do it this weekend. So yesterday and today I've been doing what I call chair flying, where basically I put pictures up on the computer screen, and that would be of the instrument panel. And then I basically take the checklist and I run the flight profile from start to finish. Every checklist item, I'm moving to where that component was in the airplane. And I do that just to get prepped. And in this case, it's important because I've only got I've got 3 flights, 6 hours in the airplane. I'm taking a check ride tomorrow in that airplane. And so I want to drive home the muscle memory and control locations and such. And so I really have been prepping for that pretty hard the last couple of days. I'm going to continue that today. And then hopefully, check ride goes well tomorrow. I drive home, and then, I could, in theory, be flying with these guys the following week, I think. And which would be great, because if I can fly 2 days a week with the co-pilot day rate, it's 50% more than unemployment in California. If I can fly 4 or 5 days a week, I can get to 60-70% of what I was making beforehand, and that then leaves me some time to do other projects on the side that will hopefully provide a similar benefit. It's been an interesting reminder of the difference between kind of day visual flying. Like a lot of my flying over the last 5 years has been formation flying, aerobatic flying, and the occasional $100 hamburger run. So, I haven't had to do a lot of navigation. I haven't had to do a lot of flight planning per se. Certainly not. If you put 2 of us in the airplane and we're going to fly from Las Vegas to Reno, how many gold bars can we put in the airplane, and where do we have to put them? What's our single engine service ceiling at that gross takeoff weight, and so on and so forth. I really haven't had to do a lot of that. Really just with the exception of biannual flight reviews talking about things like that. So, it's been a good learning experience to have to go through that. The other aspect is that the visual flying is so simplistic that I've really gotten away from using checklists as a tool. When I'm flying my Yak, I know the airplane very well. I use what we call flow. And so I know, for each phase of flight, I start at the left, I go to the right, and during that flow, depending on phase of flight, I have to do certain things. And the difference between that and the more professional flying that I'm going to be doing going forward is very stark. You have checklists, you want to use them, and so with multi-engine airplanes, it's very important that you use checklists, because they're more complex airplanes to begin with. They have more systems installed. But with respect to engine failures, it gets extremely important, for example, that you shut down the right engine if you've got a problem. If your left engine fails, but you're in a rush and you run you don't run a checklist, you run memory items, you don't back yourself up, you could turn the wrong engine off, and you can do that just by rushing through checklist items, or you can create situations that later in the flight are going to be problematic for you. And so I don't want to do that, and so that's been a really good reminder that professional flying is really procedure and checklist based. So that's been a very good reminder for me, and I've taken that into the chair flying, where I have my checklist right here, and I walk through the individual checklist items based on phase of flight or the specific emergency that I'm dealing with. And what that does is it helps offset sort of the challenges of flying an unfamiliar airplane in an unfamiliar airspace environment, in a high stress, learning and then check ride environment. That's where the checklist comes hugely into play. And so it's been a great reminder of just kind of how lazy is not the right word, but it's the word I'm going to use. That some of my flying has become, where if I'm not in the front cockpit, I still should have a checklist in the back so I can make sure things get done. If I'm not in the front cockpit, I should still be cognizant of the weather. If I'm not in the front cockpit, I should still be aware of the status of the airplane, status of the airspace, or the TFRs, are there NOTAMs out. Those are things that I usually rely on the pilot I'm flying with, if I'm in an instruction mode, to do. And I think going forward, I'm not going to be quite so informal on a lot of those things. So basically, just kind of wanted to talk about that for a minute. It's interesting to me, because I take the check rides important, I usually put a lot of stress on myself, usually to the point that it does sometimes affect my sleep, or my ability to even eat well. And this has been no different. This is important to me. There's a job possibility tied to it. I don't want to be on unemployment. It's not my style. And so, it's trying to kind of push through this, get it all done. The benefit is that this is very much like what my training experience is going to be going forward. Going forward, when I get an opportunity to, for example, take the professional training for, say, the Cheyenne or the King Airs, there's going to be a package that you get that is all the information that's important on the airplane. You're supposed to get familiar with that. Then you're going to get 2, maybe 3 days in the classroom, where it's drinking from a fire hose, and then after that you're going to get 1, maybe 2 days in the sim, and that's not solid days. That's you're in the captain's seat for a bit, you're maybe observing from co-pilot for a bit, and then you're not even in the sim, you're watching for a bit, and that's 1, maybe 2 days. And then you go check ride in the airplane usually. And so this has been kind of good to level set my expectations for training. And again, I feel extremely fortunate to kind of be in a position where I've got this opportunity that really only requires I complete this multi-engine task, and then I can start flying as a co-pilot and really learning that corporate flying world, right? So it's not just the procedures in the airplane, it's not just the systems in the airplane, it's the interpersonal actions and interactions with the customer. It's being flexible, because maybe the customer said they needed 2 hours and it takes 4. They wanted to go to one location, they're like, hey, why don't you go drop me off at my house in this other part of Mexico, or this other part of California, or Utah, or whatever. And so these are all the things that I kind of have to adjust to, and so it's been really pretty good. One thing that the formation world has taught me, and the aerobatic world has taught me, that's definitely helped, is this concept of really debriefing the flight. And it was kind of interesting. The instructor I'm riding with, he's a younger guy, probably late 20s, maybe 30 on the outside, but if I had to guess, I'd say he's 27 or 28. He was actually ready to go out into the airline world, and the COOF messed that up, so he's kind of had to come back to instructing, which is not what guys who have ATP minimums and are trying to go get an airline job want to do. But he's been really pretty good. I prefer a little bit more structure, but that's just my learning style. But what's been interesting is at the end of each flight, I've kind of done my normal debrief, which starts at the beginning, walks through the flight, and ends at the end. And it's a dispassionate, fact-based discussion of what my observations were on the flight, for myself in this case. And I talked about first flight, second flight, third flight, all the things that I noticed, all the things that I either can or want to do better. And at the end of each one of them, he's like, man, you're really hard on yourself. And I'm like, I'm really just trying to make sure that I'm learning still, and that I'm still focused on getting better. And so the benefit of that is that I do actually observe more than I sometimes process during the flight. And so in this case, really the most difficult thing for me is flying the single engine approach. So one of the things we have to be able to demonstrate is that if one of the engines has failed, I can still fly an instrument approach to landing. And instrument flying is itself a very perishable skill, I'll say. And so, you have to be able to maintain the skill set. You can do some of that with the sim, you do some of it in the airplane. In this case, if you take semi-rusty instrument skills and you combine them with the difference of now flying an airplane that's not wanting to track straight, and let's say you were rushed, you didn't get the airplane trimmed. These are all the things that I observed and have commented on. And now, as I do my chair flying, which I described earlier, I'm actually trying to take advantage of those lessons so that I plan my flight for the check ride better, and give myself a greater margin to effectively execute on the single engine approach in particular. So I've been practicing a lot of that, kind of rehearsing it in my head, physically walking through the steps. And it's been working really well. I look forward to it. And so that's kind of where I'm at. Just wanted to share a little bit. If anybody else is kind of in a situation like me where you're learning new stuff, feel free to post up questions and comments down below. If you like don't forget to share, like, and subscribe if you're inclined to do so. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. I'll be doing basically chair flying the rest of today. Tomorrow I'll use the cockpit procedure trainer at the office of the school. And 1 o'clock we'll start the oral, and God willing and the creek don't rise, 4 o'clock tomorrow Pacific, I'll be the newest commercial multi-engine pilot in the United States. So hopefully that works out. That's certainly the objective. So again, really appreciate you guys tuning in. Love the interaction when you ask questions and make comments. So that's all I had. We'll catch up with everybody later. Bye.